A game like League is very subjective by nature and has a lot of questions that can never be answered definitively. Should a jungler farm or gank in a certain game state? Are enchanters or engage supports better? However, to me, that just makes the idea of finding any objective truth about a small part of the game all the more enticing. And what better topic could there be than the age-old question between Gathering Storm and Scorch? Let's look at the absolute basics first. Gathering Storm gives you a flat amount of AP or AD every 10 minutes. This effect ramps up, you gain more and more stats for each completed 10-minute cycle. I will be focusing on the AP aspect of the rune. Scorch instead deals magic damage to a champion after you hit them with an ability. The magic damage notably is not the same throughout the game, despite how it is often portrayed. Instead, it scales with your level. To be clear, its scaling is very limited. It barely doubles over the course of the game, however, it absolutely is relevant scaling and can't be ignored. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the numbers, let's go over some scenarios in which one rune is just better than the other and it can't be argued in any way whatsoever. Scorch does something in the first 10 minutes of the game. If all of your games have this game state 10 minutes into the game, it probably doesn't matter how strong your rune gets at 30 minutes into the game. On the other hand, Scorch does one thing, and one thing only. It provides single target damage to champions. It does not help you with wave clear, with tower damage, and, most importantly, it doesn't interact with any non-damage scaling on your abilities. Some slows scale with AP, as do some attack speed or movement speed buffs, and of course, healing and shielding with AP ratios. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, how do we go about comparing two runes that provide different things? One straight damage, the other a stat that will be turned into damage. Well, first of all, we do have to add a little asterisk to my initial claim. We can't make this fully objective. We can only create situations and frameworks within which we can compare the two objectively. Our first framework will be a simple graph. One axis has our level. The other depicts the AP ratio an ability would need to have for Gathering Storm to lead to the same amount of damage that Scorch does. We have three separate lines on the graph for three different time frames. As you can see, Scorch deals the equivalent damage of an ability with an AP ratio of 2.5 and 3.8 before minute 20, an ability with an AP ratio of 1 to 1.5 between 20 and 30 minutes, and only an AP ratio of around 0.6 past minute 30. On its own, this doesn't really tell us anything yet. We need to add some numbers to compare it to. Seraph's Q has a 0.85 AP ratio, so for just this Q, Scorch is better until 30. This is pretty unrealistic though. In a real game, you will rarely damage someone with only Q. Let's say you play Ludens and Comet. Now Q would have a combined AP ratio of 1.15, and at this point something interesting happens. Scorch has scenarios in which it outscales Gathering Storm. Because Gathering scales in the form of a staircase, it is possible for Scorch to catch up and overtake it during a 10-minute segment in which Gathering is not increasing at all. Of course, at the next 10-minute breakpoint, Scorch will fall behind again. In the long run, Gathering is just a better scaling rune. Okay, let's get back to the examples. Let's look at what I would consider a standard combo for Xerath. E, W, Q. With this, Gathering Storm will be better starting at 20 minutes and it will stay ahead consistently. It's also possible that Xerath can only interact with his ultimate, so let's get that up there. This is assuming 4 hits. By combining these different cases, we can fill out more of what will happen in a real game. Let's say with a Q. Then, after Scorch comes back up again, we hit a full EWQ combo. Where would that land us? What about 2 individual Qs and then an EWQ combo? On the opposite direction, what if we hit an EWQ combo and an individual Q, all within the same 10-second window, so before Scorch comes back up again? Or we could expand our scope to include multiple enemies. What if a Q hits 2 targets at once? I'm not going to bore you by putting every possible combination of abilities up here, including with Comet, with Ludens, with Liandry's, etc. etc. But I will link a Google Sheets document in the description that shows some more variations. The important takeaway here is that Scorch does great in the 10 to 20 minute time frame. It is only within the 20 to 30 minute time frame that Gathering pulls ahead, and even then If you're able to get a decent amount of single ability pokes, Scorch stays within touching distance at least. Let's look at another graph. This time, instead of comparing the two runes on individual abilities and combos, I want to look at them over the course of an entire game, or at least starting in minute 10. I did this based on a game that No Way For You played on stream recently. For the x-axis, I use engagements, which I didn't define very rigorously. This is not super scientific. The rough explanation is that whenever the players stopped interacting, I would end the data point and start a new one the next time an ability hit. As expected from our first graph, Scorch outdamages Gathering Storm fairly cleanly until 20 minutes. At that point, you can immediately see that Gathering starts catching up rapidly, and by 30 minutes it was ahead. I did the same procedure for a second game as well, lining up the breakpoints. What we see is more of the same. Scorch outperforms until 20 minutes, a massive improvement by Gathering. However, in this case it didn't catch up fully as the game ended a bit too quickly. Just to be clear, this is the damage after 10 minutes. Scorch, being a rune before 10 minutes, while Gathering does nothing, is its whole own data point, and I did not want to combine it with this. To me this was quite surprising. I figured Gathering would be substantially ahead by 30 minutes, and it would become subjective depending on how much higher you value the earlier damage, which rune you prefer. But as it is, the break-even point is just around the average game length for Master Plus games. If you're looking for damage on champions, it really isn't a contest. Scorch is just clearly better. At least it is clearly better on Xerath, who I've been talking about for far too long. Let's go over some other characters rapid fire. Ari can consider Gathering if she cares about the spread damage in teamfights. For single target assassination, she should absolutely take Scorch. Victor has a great single ability poke with a low AP ratio, which makes Scorch really attractive. However, he also has very low cooldown abilities, so if he gets extended skirmishes, Gathering has a solid argument. His rune choice should depend on team comms. Regardless of Stolen Ultimate, Silas will gain more damage from Gathering Storm if he hits his full combo. Katarina basically only depends on her ultimate. Her ultimate on its own has a high enough ratio for Gathering to outperform Scorch. Without her ultimate, Scorch will be better, so her decision should depend on how quickly she expects her ultimate to get interrupted in teamfights. Veigar doesn't have the AP ratios to make Gathering work, until his target is low enough for his ultimate to get maximum execute damage, and at that point he tends to overkill anyway. Though he, along with quite a few others on the list, generally get neither Scorch nor Gathering, this is just a look at which rune would be better if you had to choose one of them. Akali has very high AP ratios, and Gathering will be better as long as E hits. Kassadin's a weird one. If he's able to use his ultimate for damage consistently, Gathering will be better, but if he isn't able to consistently R on top of people and does a bit of poking with Q and E, Scorch will be better. Vlad's ratios are really not great. Scorch will do more for him in a 1v1. However, he has massive AoEs and tends to play for them, so Gathering is generally better actually. Twisted Fate has mediocre AP ratios. Even when we assume he has Lichbane already, Scorch is clearly better. Lux does not have the ratios for Gathering to truly shine. Depending on level, Scorch will outdamage even if ultimate is used. Lissandra will get more single target damage from Scorch until 20 minutes. However, she has a lot of AoE damage as well, which makes Gathering look like the better choice. Anivia is another character that is rather hard to quantify. On just QE, Scorch will be better. But if you're able to trap someone in your ultimate for an extended period of time, Gathering quickly overtakes it. Which is not to mention that her kit is very AoE by nature. LeBlanc will benefit from Scorch more if the combo is without ult, or if it is only a partial combo, such as the second part of Eno procking, or if she uses her W to get in range. The full combo will deal more damage with Gathering. I think she's the archetypical Scorch character for a lot of people. However, her ult is rather low cooldown, so the choice between the runes ends up a lot closer for her than you would think. Zoe's burst combo after E does not have a high enough AP ratio for Gathering to compete. She can also benefit from individual ability pokes from her W or short range Qs in lane. Fizz will deal very slightly more damage with Scorch when not using ult. However, with his ultimate, Gathering Storm is substantially better. Malzahar gains a lot from Gathering Storm whenever he uses ult. On the other hand, without his ult, he often just gets individual ability pokes, which are great for Scorch. Just to be very clear, I'm deliberately not considering what I outlined at the beginning as clear advantages for either of the runes. Tower damage, wave clear, or non-damaging AP ratios are valid reasons to prefer Gathering Storm over Scorch despite it dealing less damage. Likewise, valuing the first 10 minutes of the game very highly and picking to optimize advantages during this time frame is a subjective choice. But with that nice disclaimer out of the way, this is the end of the video. Sorry, I do not have a clean "this is better than that." Unfortunately, it depends too much on the champion to do that. What I will say is that Scorch in the 10 to 20 minute time frame is clearly underrated, or relatively Gathering is overrated. A lot of characters benefit more from Scorch than from Gathering in this time frame, especially those that can reliably hit single ability pokes. For them, it even remains close until 30 minutes. Even if I didn't mention your main, I hope this at least gives you the tools to make an informed decision yourself. There are a couple similar topics I'm planning to explore, particularly bone plating, absolute focus, and rune shards look like they could be made quite objective. Honestly, more objective than this, since they are less dependent on your champion. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a nice day.